The media calls her a reality TV star, but when this wrongfully convicted man told Kim Kardashian's real story on The Tonight Show, it exposed a truth that changes everything about who she really is. The Tonight Show studio was buzzing with its signature Tuesday evening energy in Manhattan. The familiar blue and gold lighting created that warm, inviting atmosphere that had made the show America's favorite late-night destination. Kim Kardashian sat elegantly across from Jimmy Fallon, both engaged in what seemed like a typical celebrity interview about her latest business ventures. The Roots had just finished their smooth musical transition, and the cameras were rolling hot. Jimmy's iconic curved desk gleamed under the professional studio lights, while the New York City skyline sparkled through the backdrop windows like a constellation of dreams and ambition. Kim looked every inch the global icon she'd become. Dressed in a perfectly tailored beige blazer that complemented her signature style, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek bun, she radiated the confidence that had built a billion-dollar empire. But beneath her polished exterior, there was something different tonight, a depth that most people never got to see. "So Kim," Jimmy said, his animated gestures punctuating every word, "you've got Skims absolutely dominating the shapewear market. You're studying law, you've got the kids, the businesses. How do you manage to do it all?" Kim smiled that media-trained smile that had graced countless magazine covers. "You know, Jimmy, people think I just post on Instagram all day, but there's so much more happening behind the scenes. The legal work especially has become such a huge part of my life." "Right. You're actually studying to become a lawyer," Jimmy said, clearly impressed. "That's not something people typically associate with reality TV stars. What inspired that career change?" Kim's expression grew more serious, her carefully constructed media persona beginning to crack slightly. "It started with Alice Marie Johnson's case. When I learned about her story, about how she was serving life without parole for a non-violent drug offense, I knew I had to do something. But then I realized there were thousands of Alice Johnsons." The audience was listening attentively, many seeming surprised by this more substantive side of Kim that they rarely heard about in the tabloids. "And you've actually gotten people released from prison?" Jimmy asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. "We have," Kim replied, and for the first time, her voice carried real emotion. "My legal team and I have worked on dozens of cases, people who were wrongfully convicted, people serving disproportionate sentences, people the system forgot about." She paused, looking out at the audience with an intensity that seemed to search for something or someone. "The thing is, Jimmy, when you actually meet these people, when you hear their stories, when you see how the system has failed them, it changes you. It's not about publicity or building a brand. It's about human beings whose lives have been destroyed by injustice." The conversation was taking on a weight that neither Jimmy nor the audience had expected. This wasn't the Kim Kardashian of social media controversies and fashion choices. This was someone grappling with real issues, real pain, real responsibility. "That's incredible," Jimmy said, "and I imagine some of these cases must be really emotional for you personally." "They all are," Kim replied, her voice softening. "But there's one case in particular that—" She trailed off, her composure beginning to slip. It was at this moment that a voice from the audience cut through the studio atmosphere with startling clarity. "Ms. Kardashian?" Both Kim and Jimmy turned toward the sound. In the sixth row, slightly right of center, a man in his 40s was standing among the seated audience members. He was African American, wearing a simple gray suit that looked like it might have been borrowed for this occasion. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the back of the chair in front of him, and his eyes held the kind of depth that comes only from surviving something that should have broken you. Kim's reaction was immediate and visceral. Her perfectly composed media facade crumbled as recognition flooded her features. Her hand went to her mouth, and tears began forming in her eyes. "Marcus?" she whispered so quietly that the microphones barely picked it up. "Yes, ma'am," the man replied, his voice strong despite the emotion clearly building in his chest. "Marcus Washington from Detroit." The studio had fallen completely silent. Jimmy looked between Kim and Marcus, sensing that something profound was about to unfold, but not understanding what. "Marcus," Kim said, now openly crying, "what are you doing here? How did you—" "I needed to be here," Marcus interrupted gently. "I needed people to know the truth about what you did for me, for my family." Jimmy, clearly out of the loop but recognizing the gravity of the moment, set down his cards and leaned forward. "Kim, do you two know each other?" Kim wiped her eyes, struggling to regain composure. Marcus is one of our clients. Was one of our clients. "I was wrongfully convicted of armed robbery in 2008, Marcus said, his voice now carrying across the silent studio. "Sentenced to 25 years to life under Michigan's 3 strikes law. I spent 14 years in prison for a crime I didn't commit." The weight of his words settled over the studio like a blanket. The audience members who had come expecting celebrity gossip and lighthearted banter were now witnessing something entirely different. The witness who identified me later admitted she was coerced by police. The real perpetrator confessed to the crime in 2019. But my appeals were denied. Public defenders didn't have the resources to fight properly. I was invisible to the system. Kim was now crying openly, no longer caring about her makeup or her image. "Until someone told me about Kim Kardashian's legal work," Marcus continued. "At first I thought it was a joke. Kim Kardashian, the reality TV star, what could she possibly do for someone like me?" He looked directly at Kim, his expression filled with gratitude and something deeper. "But I wrote to her team anyway. I figured I had nothing left to lose. And 3 months later, I got a call that changed everything." Without hesitation, without consulting producers or following any protocol, Kim Kardashian stood up and walked directly into the audience toward Marcus. "Marcus," she said as she reached him, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what happened to you, for what the system did to you." "Don't apologize," Marcus replied, embracing her as the cameras continued rolling. "Thank me. Thank me for not giving up when everyone else did." When they separated, both were crying, and the studio audience was beginning to understand they were witnessing something extraordinary. "Tell them," Kim said, her voice barely controlled. "Tell them what really happened." Marcus nodded, looking out at the audience and cameras. "Kim Kardashian didn't just take my case, she obsessed over it. Her legal team worked for free. She personally reviewed every document, every piece of evidence, every witness statement." He turned back to Kim. "You called me every week for 8 months while we fought my case. Not your assistant, not your publicist. You, Kim Kardashian, called a man in prison just to check on him." The studio was completely silent, except for the sound of people crying. Not just Kim and Marcus, but audience members and crew who were understanding the magnitude of what they were hearing. "When the prosecutor finally agreed to reopen my case," Marcus continued, "Kim was there in court, not for cameras, not for publicity. The media didn't even know. She was there because she believed in my innocence when no one else would." Jimmy, clearly moved, had joined them in the audience. "Marcus, when did you get out?" 6 months ago, Marcus replied. "After 14 years of hell, I walked out of that courthouse a free man because Kim Kardashian refused to let the system forget about me." He looked back at Kim. "But here's what people need to understand. I wasn't her only case. While she was fighting for me, she was fighting for dozens of others. People who had been written off, people who had no voice, people the world had forgotten." Kim was sobbing now, all pretense of celebrity composure gone. "Marcus, you were never forgotten, never. Your case kept me up at night. Your story haunted me. When you called me crying after you got out, when you told me you could finally hug your daughter again." She couldn't finish the sentence. "That's why I'm here," Marcus said, addressing the audience directly. "Because the world thinks Kim Kardashian is just a reality TV star who posts pictures on Instagram. But I know Kim Kardashian as the woman who spent her own money, her own time, her own emotional energy to save a stranger's life." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is the letter she wrote to the judge in my case. She wrote it herself, not a lawyer, not a publicist. Kim Kardashian wrote a 5-page letter explaining why I deserved freedom, why my family deserved to have me back." The camera zoomed in as he unfolded the letter, and viewers could see Kim's handwriting, personal and heartfelt. She wrote, "Marcus Washington is not just a case number or a statistic. He is a father who has missed 14 years of his daughter's life. He is a son whose mother died while he was wrongfully imprisoned. He is a human being who deserves the chance to rebuild what the system took from him." The studio erupted in applause, but it wasn't typical late-night applause. This was something deeper, something that acknowledged the sacred nature of justice and redemption. But Marcus wasn't finished. The day I was released, Kim was the first person to call me, not to congratulate herself, not to get publicity, but to ask if I was okay, if my family was okay, if I needed anything. He looked directly into the cameras. She set up a fund to help me transition back to civilian life. She connected me with job training programs. She invited my daughter to events so she could feel special after years of having a father in prison. This woman, who the media portrays as superficial, treated my family like we were her family. Kim reached for the microphone Jimmy was holding. "Marcus, can I say something?" He nodded, stepping back slightly. "For anyone watching who thinks this is about me being a hero or changing my image, you're wrong. This is about Marcus and thousands of people like him who have been failed by a broken system." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "I didn't study law for publicity. I didn't take these cases for my brand. I did it because once you know how many innocent people are in prison, once you understand how the system works against the most vulnerable people in our society, you can't unsee it." She looked directly into the main camera. If you have privilege, if you have resources, if you have a platform, you have a responsibility to use it for people who don't. That's not about being a good person. That's about being a human being. The applause grew even louder, but Kim held up her hand. "And Marcus, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for reminding people that behind every case number is a real person with a real family who deserves justice." She turned back to the audience. "Since Alice Johnson, our team has helped get 63 people released from prison. 63 human beings who are now free, who are back with their families, who have their lives back. And we're just getting started." Jimmy, his voice thick with emotion, addressed both Kim and Marcus. "This is incredible. This is real change, real impact. Marcus, what's next for you?" "I'm studying law now," Marcus replied with a smile. "Kim inspired me to help others the way she helped me. My goal is to become an advocate for wrongfully convicted individuals." "And Kim's paying for his legal education," Kim added quietly. The show ended differently that night. No standard closing monologue, no promotional segments. It's just Kim and Jimmy sitting with Marcus as the credits rolled, the three of them talking about justice, redemption, and the power of refusing to give up on people the system has forgotten. When the episode aired 2 weeks later, it became one of the most watched Tonight Show segments in the show's history. The hashtag #JohnJusticeForAll trended worldwide for days. Thousands of people shared stories of loved ones caught in the criminal justice system. Marcus Washington became a powerful advocate for prison reform, speaking at law schools and policy conferences about his experience. He always began his speeches the same way. "My name is Marcus Washington, and Kim Kardashian saved my life." Kim Kardashian never spoke about changing her public image, but something shifted in how the world saw her. The reality TV star who had built an empire on fame had revealed something deeper. A woman willing to use her privilege for people who had been forgotten. And every time someone dismissed her as just a reality TV star, there were now 63 formerly incarcerated people and their families ready to tell a different story about who Kim Kardashian really is.